We shouldn't use the word tragedy too often, but that of the pronunciation of open E's in opera is a tragedy. Open E's are hard to sing. Do we need an evidence of that? Do you ever vocalize on open E's? I don't think so. Do you vocalize on I's? E? E? I think so, because it pulls your sound together. It puts it into place, or at least you feel, like you have all of your rings, so it warms up the ring of your voice, the squillo. Do you vocalize on O's? Oh! You do, because it enlarges your throat. It gives you depth, and it makes you feel the profundity of your sound and the best openness of your instrument. Do you vocalize on A's? Yes, you do, but even when we attempt making an A, we have to be careful, because if the jaw gets displaced and we go too much if this aria gets stuck, the sound will be penalized. It will be whiter. It will be more flat in vibrato, and that will mess up our line. Is there a way to pronounce the lighter shades of the Italian vocal range? A, E. The evidence of the fact that the Italian open E is really difficult is that Americans, for example, but pretty much everybody, when they speak Italian, their E's are all open. Grazie, bene, belle, they are all like this. There are no closed E's whatsoever. But when they're singing, all of those E's become closed for some sort of magic. And so we have like sempre con fe sincera, when it's a sempre con fe sincera, because open E's are tricky, and you feel that if you open your E, you're gonna lose your sound, you're gonna displace it. And so the solution that most of the singers find is that they sail here in the position of the I. That's not what's supposed to happen. Also, because Italian has its chiaroscuro, the open E is a constitutional vowel in the Italian language, and it's so important to preserve it. Otherwise, we will all sound from Milan or from Bologna. Sempre bene. I am here today to tell you that I've covered dark, steamy, nicely sounding Italian is possible. If you cover a vowel in a bad way by just modifying the general setting of your instrument, you can tell from the outside if it's a bad setting, because your face will start looking very weird. So much like an opera singer trying to put his sound someplace where it sounds good. That mostly doesn't work. So it's really best not to exceed in this camouflage procedures, because it's just a camouflage. It is a typical common solution, especially for low voices or for high voices in the low repertoire, because that's when you mostly feel like you're losing it, and you have to keep it there, you have to keep it there. Now, I want to give you this image first. Think of the Chinese shadow. When you are doing the Chinese shadows, you do not act on the source of light in order to obtain a shape. With singing is exactly the same. Your vocality is some sort of steady flux of light, of waves, that never changes in its homogeneity. It can change of intensity, it can change of pitch, and this is given by mental impulses that act directly. But the pronunciation, the diction, which is the shape that flux takes at each time, does not have to affect that flux directly at all. If a singer had a stroke on his left hemisphere, he could still vocalize. He couldn't sing the words, but he could still vocalize because the music is produced by our right hemisphere, the creative one, which is linked to our left side. Language and words instead are produced by our left hemisphere, by our rational hemisphere, which is linked to the right side of our body. So they're produced in completely different parts of the brain, and the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere have nothing to do one with another.
So this is a real human brain. This is the front of the brain, the back of the brain with the spinal cord hanging down. And this is how it would be positioned inside of my head. And when you look at the brain, it's obvious that the two cerebral cortices are completely separate from one another. For those of you who understand computers, our right hemisphere functions like a parallel processor, while our left hemisphere functions like a serial processor. The two hemispheres do communicate with one another through the corpus callosum, which is made up of some 300 million axonal fibers. But other than that, the two hemispheres are completely separate. Because they process information differently, each of our hemispheres think about different things, they care about different things, and dare I say, they have very different personalities.
Basically, what we're doing when we're singing with our right side of the brain is we're producing this wave, this flux, constant ray of light that's present at all times in our singing. And what we do with our left hemisphere when we start singing words is some sort of Chinese shadows that give this flux different shapes and also different nuances. What I'm saying is that in order to obtain an open E, the Italian E, the Latin I, which tells us that the vowel, that color, is basically an enlargement of the A. Where the tongue rather becomes more relaxed and more flat than less. When we sing the open E's, instead of going we should go There is a way to sing the open E without compromising the coverage of the sound. Okay, covering the sound is not a camouflage. Covering the sound just means to remember at all times that you do not shape the sound with your muscles. You shape the sound like the Chinese shadows, like Pollyanna's prisms reflecting rainbows. You do that with your mind, without losing the squillo, without losing the brilliancy. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be It can be an open E, a large, vibrating open E, if done properly. No, 100 trappole prima di cedere. 100 trappole prima di cedere. In Latin it used to be ae, cedo, cado, the cadenza. So it really has to be ce. And it gives a different, less banal shape to your light, especially because if you keep reiterating this at all time closed E in order to keep your sound and your vocal line into place throughout an entire opera, it will be so boring. You will lose the chiaroscuro of the language, and you will lose some amazing chance to make your voice heard in that very peculiar nuance, reflection, shape, mirroring shape that the open E's give to a voice.
Must be covering the sound, the vocal cord, then generally vibrate totally. They are in a position of rest. they are in a position of rest who permit you to go to the top very easy because they are fresh. Not just this, but they permit you to make very, very noble sound instead of a wide and strangled sound. And this is, in my opinion, the real key of the entire situation. You want an example?
No.
Dammi un F sharp. Allora, you can suspect a strangle, eh? If you do I don't make much più fatica. It's easier after 20 years, of course, but the support from the diaphragm. And when I do this sound, the vocal cords are vibrating just in the middle, not at the end. They are in a position of resting. Then I can do the following very easy, jumping down, jumping to the other sound, like an animal. It's true. It's a little like that. If you really are very careful until that area, after you can be totally free.